Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining ESOA's showcase this year. I want to apologize for the changes in the agenda. We were supposed to have this showcase yesterday, but I want to thank Forum Europe for the flexibility and help to make it happen today. I'm Natalia Vicente, Director of Public Affairs and Communications at ESOA. And at ESOA, we believe there is one main thing we need to keep in mind even in Spectrum conferences, and that is the impact of connectivity. What are we achieving with it, and why is it so important to understand and be aware of all the services that are being provided in order to make informed regulatory and spectrum decisions? ESOA represents 22 satellite operators that are providing services globally, and today we decided to host a chat with one of our regional members, Nishkomsat. The essential role of satellite to connect everyone is becoming increasingly clear, but there is plenty of work to still do, and today we will hear the impact satellite has in transforming lives in Africa. I would like to introduce to you our guest today and pass her the floor. If we may have the next slide, please. We have with us Dr. Abimbola Alale, the current CEO of Nishkomsat. She has an incredible career in the space sector for over 20 years. She has a PhD on security and strategic studies from Nasarawa State University in Nigeria. She holds also a master's degree in space studies and an MBA degree from the International Space University in Strasbourg, France. She has also obtained other certificates at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the USA and the Management School of London. Dr. Abimbola is a fellow of African Space Institute, a certified forensic investigation professional, member of International Academy of Forensics, and a fellow of Chartered Public Diplomacy and Management. She's currently a council member of the World Economic Forum, and with this incredible profile, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So without further ado, I will hand over to you, and I would invite all of you watching to please post your comments and questions in the chat, and we will get to them after the presentation. Please, Dr. Abimbola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Natalia, and good morning from my side of the world. And like Natalia said, I currently manage the Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited. My presentation is actually very brief because most of us know or are aware of the impact of satellites. So I will just let you know what we do at Nishkomsat and how we have used Nishkomsat satellites to improve the socio-economic benefits of Nigerians and our recent achievement, basically. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Well, Nishkomsat, that's Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, was incorporated in 2006, and I'm proud to say is the first sub-Saharan African commercial communication satellite company. We've been providing innovative and cutting-edge satellite solutions since inception, and we also operate and manage a geostationary satellite, which is our own satellite, Nishkomsat 1R, in addition to providing CSR service for other satellite owners and IoT service, which is the in-orbit testing and carrier spectrum management services. Next slide, please. Well, our vision stands to be the leading satellite communication solution provider in Nigeria and Africa, while our mission is to provide seamless connectivity and satellite communications solutions through innovation. Next slide, please. The core values of the company centered around leadership, innovation, integrity, professionalism, and being customer-centric. Everything we do around our customers in order to service them. And in this case, first and foremost, our customers are Nigerians and then other African countries. Go ahead, please. Next, please. Well, the resources on our own satellites, the Nishkomsat 1R, is actually a quad-band satellite, comprises of C-band, Ku-band, Ka-band, and L-band, and it covers over 40 countries, over 40 African countries. And a little bit of the beam also is steerable towards towards Asia. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Ku-band coverage of the satellite, the footprint. That's ECOWAS 1 and ECOWAS 2. Next slide, please. Then we have the C-band, which is basically covers all around West Africa to Central and East Africa and down into the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, in order to support the oil and gas industries around Nigeria. Then we have the L-band, which is a global beam, which is currently supporting aviation sector in Africa. Next, please. And this is our K-band coverage. There are three spot beams in Europe, Nigeria, and Southern Africa. Next, please. Next, please. Well, majorly our business centers around transponder leasing, broadband services, which we provide mobility and internet services with the broadband services. And then, of course, we provide and data for backhauling services, and of course supports the next please supports the L-bandies for the rural connectivity in Nigeria. Well, close to 49% of Nigeria still reside in the rural areas, in spite of the rural to urban migration, because everybody wants better life. And one of the reasons that people move to the urban areas is because they want to have access to broadband services, to many services, and be able to enjoy what those who reside in the urban areas reside. And one of the key elements that actually connects people right now, of course, is broadband. So, of course, Nigeria actually put a very high level of a lot of focus on having a broadband plan for Nigeria in order to keep the population density, stabilized, not to have overpopulated urban areas. And government has actually had this in mind since the year 2000, early 2000, when we have the International Business Solution in forms of VSATs. It's over 2,000 VSATs. 5,000 VSATs were installed by the federal government in different rural areas back in the days. And when Nishkomsat came, he rated some of those projects, and we keep moving on. Next, please. And of course, what are the barriers to rural connectivity that Nishkomsat is trying to break in through the national broadband plan that was drawn by our ministry? Because we recently have a national broadband plan which is running from 2020 to 2025, and on that we've noted that at least 10% of the land coverage in Nigeria will remain unconnected if satellite does not come in to play its role. So, of course, we have the terrestrial and the wireless operators, but because of high capex, of high opex, and of course presumed low average revenue per user, it's becoming very, very difficult for them to actually, go into the deep areas where you have difficult terrains, where you have sparsely populated. The settlements in rural areas, they're usually sparsely located. You can have just small clusters and bits around. So it doesn't make so much of economic sense for terrestrial and wireless cable and terrestrial operators, because that would mean they have to deploy multiple infrastructure. But in case of satellite, all you just need is to install your VSAT and point, and it's and you have connection. Next slide, please. So, like I was saying, with satellite, you can have rapid connectivity penetration, because it's just a matter of you installing your VSAT, and boom, you have connection. And of course, you can't overemphasize the impact of satellite broadband connectivity, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, at the thick of it last year, where many businesses were cut down. And those in the rural areas, they felt, left out. But quickly, government moved into place. So many new installations were done, and people were able to connect. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, we supported them. We're able to help them to give live reports live what is happening, and inform citizens of what to do, preventive measures, what to do and what not to do. And we supported small and medium enterprises to be able to, have connection and do their businesses online. And I think COVID-19 also made so many businesses to go online. Because right now you have, I think I even do my own shopping, most of my shopping online. I've not been going into shops. So, and for those in the rural areas, how do they connect? It is only, the only viable means is through broadband, satellite broadband connectivity. And I'm very glad that Nishkomsat has been very useful. And because of that, the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy in Nigeria, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, quickly moved to actually not launch a policy that supports VSAT core training skills for Nigeria, because everybody now felt, oh, okay, so satellites can be this useful. And it made me very glad that we were able to support those who reside in rural areas and small businesses, and were able to bring to fore the importance of satellite connectivity. Next slide, please. Well, specifically the role of the role we have played, or we have used the satellite to play in Nigeria over the years. We have provided job opportunities to over 150,000 engineers, technicians, and telecom service providers, because we now have last mile solution providers, providing some of our channel partners. We train them to be able to provide so many services. We've always made training to be part of what we do, even our channel partners, and we train them. We train young ones to be able to do installation of VSAT installation and TVRO, and be able to align and meet up with standards. And of course, that has contributed to the acceleration and growth of innovation services, because we are able to also impact some of the knowledge we have gained in the industry in terms of soft skills into others. And of course, once there's broadband connectivity, job outsourcing it's there for people to be able to capitalize on and be able to provide jobs and earn their wages and raise funds for themselves, rather than depend on government all the time. And of course, we're able to, that's talking of provision of platform for small and medium scale ICT service provider in the rural areas to partake of the global US 1.2 trillion ICT business opportunities, and which in reality has actually caused an increase in internet penetration and growth, particularly in the rural areas. And there's one other interesting thing. We are now talking about providing connectivity support to NIPOS. NIPOS is a Nigerian Postal Services project, because NIPOS is all over the country, spread across the country. They have facilities across this country, and NIPOS has a project with the Central Bank of Nigeria to be able to use their outposts as financial hub, to be able to provide financial services to those who live in the rural areas. And Nishkomsat is working with them to be able to provide connectivity so that every Nigerian can be included in the new financial regulations, and irrespective of where they live, and they can have access to online banking services, and of course trading and all that. Next, please. Talking about everything we've done recently, one of the greatest achievements that I find very happy is that we were able to contribute the L band of Nishkomsat to support the first African satellite-based augmentation system in providing navigation solution for Africa, which is in conjunction with the Agency for Area Safety and Navigation in Africa and Thales Alenia of France. We were able to work together to be able to utilize the L-band to provide the services. It's already currently operational in Togo, Senegal, and Cameroon. And I'm very proud of that, because we started that during the COVID, and we're able to start the broadcast in September of last year, and the service kept growing. And because of that, Nigerian government is Nigerian aviation sector is now very encouraged, and they want to invest in that services in order to improve our our aviation sector, landing systems and all that. And so this particular achievement is tops on my table as one thing that we're able to achieve, with Nishkomsat 1R. That's our L band, which is a global beam. And we also, like what I talked earlier about supporting the presidential task force with broadband services during the COVID. And we used our KA band, and SABA, depending on the region, because KU band is very well popularized in Nigeria. The KU band in the low range density of the north, we always deploy them and it's very clear. And then the C band in Lagos and especially the security sector, they love C band and the broadcasting sector. So because of them, we utilize some of the C band, our C band and services. Next, please. Next slide, please. No, I still need to talk. There's a slide before this. Yeah. I mentioned the fact that because the importance of satellite services was brought to fore, the honorable minister quickly developed this national policy and put Nishkomsat in charge of spearheading the implementation. The policy was flagged up by training of some people from the selected from the remote areas. The first day the policy was flagged up, we conducted training, I think in about 3 states, and 3 states, because we've done 12 states, and we've done 12 states, and those 12 states gave us 600 youths, because in every state we trained 50. And so on the first day the policy was implemented, we trained 100, and the first week, because it's a week-long training for 600 youths in those rural areas. Why I want to talk about this is because some of the trainees are already earning money with the skills acquired. They're already self-employed, they're already self-engaged, and we also have a database of some of them enrolled, and we're passing them the list on to our channel partners to be able to use to work with these people that were trained so that they can actually assist them in installing visa, because now we have a mandate in the national broadband plan to deploy 3,000 visas as quickly as possible. We're working on it, and of course we need manpower because we have to build our value chain system. This skill is very, very, very needed right now, because we must make sure that standards are met. And it is during this training that we pass on this information to those who have been trained. And what I'm happy about is the fact that many of them are now self-employed. And this is because this is very, 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 very good news for Nigeria, because everybody could keep talking about youth unemployment. But with this kind of scheme, government has provided through satellite some job intervention and skills for our youth. And that's based on that, we keep contributing our own quota towards digital economy development in Nigeria, because Nigeria is on the path of being of digitalizing its entire processes and having even its economy adequately digitalized, because the ICT sector contributed the greatest percentage to GDP last year and the first quarter of this year. So, and Nishkomsat is a very key infrastructure to support this game, and we can't but play our own role while others are playing. So satellite is very key into achieving a digital economy in Nigeria. And of course, I talked of that we also have the telemedicine platform in order to support those health delivery, because with this pandemic now, everybody is now seeing the importance of telemedicine. And I think several, even private sector, they are beginning to invest in this sector of in this telemedicine services now. And of course, satellite is very key to delivering the services via the KU and C-band. And of course, and then we have our oil and gas sector, because different services. I told you how we are how we are a little bit into the ocean. So some of our channel partners provide key services to the oil and gas sector, and even when they are exploring new areas, we are always there to give them first-hand broadband services, which is very reliable, and they transmit live. And these are things that we've done in the past, in recent times. And I'm very glad to say that the satellite is very, very useful to so many of the sectors. Next slide, please, which is the final slide. Well, I've told you some brief things about what we're doing, and I just want to let you know that the company is actually very positioned and ready to unlock rural connectivity and guarantee socioeconomic equity by connecting every dark spots, underserved and unserved parts of Nigeria through satellite. Nishkomsat space segment capacity and broadband shared services infrastructure contribute to the acceleration of broadband penetration in the rural and difficult to reach areas of Nigeria. And of course, I implore other African countries to take advantage of what we've done and leverage on the services. And of course, we have enough spectrum to support the 5G implementation to back all the services, and enough satellite caps for interpreted link and all that. So thank you all for listening. I hope I haven't taken so much time. Thank you, my host, Natalie. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Listening to you is very inspiring and interesting. Before we have any questions from the chat, please, I let everyone know that you can pose your questions, but let me start with one of mine. You are very eager talking about the training, and we have heard during the conference and in many other places how important it is to have skills and to have training. I hear that the visit installation training is a 5 years plan in which you are trying to train many youth and allow them to be independent and be entrepreneurs also. Do you think that Nishkomsat will also enlarge this training to other skills? Will you, having all this success, do you think that you're going also to enlarge it to more?
Definitely. Other than the visa skills, we are working on different packages of training that can come, in order to expand our value chain, because that's one of these things that is actually affecting our services. So we are developing different curriculum that is satellite related, and we have an AI and data innovation and development unit that keeps working on new training. And once that is done, we'll pass it on to the ministry for approval, and it can become a policy, just like the visa skills, and we'll train more youth. There are several skills that we need to give out, even marketing skills, how to even market the services, how to encourage people, and different applications areas. We want to train people on how to develop applications, because we do have very soft skill. We develop some software here. We support other agencies of government in also, in order to put their ICT or IT platform in place. So those training, we are training. In fact, we're already training some other organizations, which I don't want to talk about, for confidentiality's sake, because we've been providing training to different sectors, but it just has to be a policy thing, and we can train more, more generally.
Totally, and I think this is one of the best practices that could be replicated in other places, and we should learn from these best practices and how they impact also on the economic growth of the countries. One more question also relating to the ITU. So last year, the ITU published the last mile connectivity guidelines that included direct satellite solutions, as well as in collaboration with other technologies. And Nishkomsat is bringing connectivity to rural areas. I was wondering, apart from what we already have heard in your presentation, how do end users in rural areas access the service? Is there any collaboration with Wi-Fi in some cases, or is there other means? And how do you think collaboration with other technologies is going to affect the future of connectivity?
And for connectivity, of course, we have to use, because we are upstream. Nishkomsat is staying upstream, and we want to encourage, diverse sector to come into our value chain system. So we use last mile service providers but we work with them. We stay at the back end. We teach them what to do. We line their services up. So definitely we work with them the last mile to provide the services. And of course, the end user now use some pointing device on Wi-Fi to access the service. So, and then of course, collaboration is always something that we know that is going to strengthen future connectivity, because it's going to give way to facilities and resource sharing. So collaboration is key. And of course, we work with last mile solution provider on how to deploy satellite services, and then using all those Wi-Fi links for the end users to connect to satellite services.
Totally, and I actually was quite involved in the last mile connectivity guidelines last year, and I invite everyone that have not been able to look at them to have a look. And I think it's this kind of tools and guidelines is what helps also regulators to understand better the different services and the different solutions that are there, that sometimes we just overlook at them and we don't understand them very well. So I think they are quite interesting, and it's very useful. We have a
Yes,
question.
sorry.
Yeah.
Before you take on, yes, what you said, because the problem is people just they use the services because a last mile solution provider has provided them. So many of the end users don't even know whether it's a satellite they are using, because all they just want is, I want the service, and they get the service. So you are very right. Maybe the regulators, they need to know that it's hybrid solution that's, that solves the problem of connectivity, not just terrestrial or the cable solution. Satellite is also there, but because the end user, all they just want is access to communication service, and that is what is provided. Maybe we need to do more to let them know that, this is a satellite service and all that. But some do know, but many end users, they are not really aware. They don't know the difference between satellite, terrestrial, or cable.
And at the end of the day, the end user should be just happy that it works.
Exactly.
It's us that we are more interested in knowing, but of course the end user just needs it to work, and to have the health services that you were talking about, the education services that can arrive just because online. And as you were saying, many online businesses that, especially during the COVID times, it's the only way that they have had to flourish. And in Africa, I know that online businesses and entrepreneurs are taking the market because they are good on it. They are very entrepreneurial in that sense, and it's working very well. So I think satellite can play an important role, as you are saying, on providing those opportunities, not only for the urban areas, but also for people in the rural areas.
Yes.
So if I may bring one of the questions that we have from the audience, it's from Lyndon Petzer, and it says, if I understood correctly, you deploy C-band in Lagos area, and he's asking if you have experienced any terrestrial and FSS interference, and if so, how have you mitigated the interference?
Yeah, I just replied, Lyndon. We haven't really been because we do a lot of coordination. So we've not really had any interference, major interference issue, because once we're gonna have it, maybe because we do a lot of the coordination processes, but we haven't had any issue with any terrestrial operator, any interference issue, because once an administration complains to the Radio Communication Bureau, our administrator, which is our ministry, luckily our ministry is the Nigerian administrator at ITU. Immediately we get that response and we try to do coordination, but nothing, even the C-band, we haven't had that interference issue.
So following on that question, or at least in the topic, we know that innovating and bringing 5G connectivity everywhere, it's still a challenge, and we still need to consider the uniqueness and needs of the region. And clearly, regulatory certainty will be very important for innovation and operators' decisions. And you have been talking a bit of the challenges, but what do you think for the next 10 years will be the biggest challenges for the region to connect everyone and not just focus on the urban areas, not to forget everyone else? And what are the biggest opportunities that you think that the region has?
I'm just going to be very brief because of time. Majorly, I will mention infrastructure. I will mention funding as challenge, then adequate skill sets, and of course, the issue of security. Those are the things I consider major challenges to having, connectivity everywhere and, equal opportunity for everyone. And in terms of opportunities, the population, we still have over 70 unconnected Africans. So in this region, the population is actually an opportunity. And of course, cheap labor to deliver, So those two things, if there are any investments into connectivity in Africa, be it satellite, be it terrestrial, it's not going to go to waste because we still have a lot of people unconnected.
I see.
So opportunities are there. Yeah,
I like the data that you're sharing. Like, there's still so many people unconnected, and we sometimes don't realize it because we have it and we give it for granted.
Yes,
and it's not true at all. So it's interesting because one of the things that I've been hearing also during this last year, where we have been living through the COVID, we talk about meaningful connectivity and how to define meaningful connectivity, or what it is. And in many cases, we fall on the mistake, in my opinion, of giving speed or giving artificial requirements that are not necessarily necessary to provide connectivity for many of the use cases that we talk about that are essential for life. And so wouldn't it be reach and resilience and reliability, as we have been hearing today, one of those things that we should be looking in the new light after COVID? Shouldn't we have learned some lessons during this time? What are your views on that?
Yes, because like you said, thinking that everybody's talking of connectivity and not thinking of, but I think it is time for the regulators and governments to focus on the fact that these the hybrid solutions that will provide these things we're describing, all the standards, all the set standards, all this quality of the quality of broadband we want. You have to have satellite, you have to have the terrestrial links, you have to have the cable everywhere. You have to. It's a mix, and that is what Nigeria has done by developing the National Broadband Plan, because it's a mix. The documents looked at different technologies and brought them and assigned roles, and very realistic, looking at, okay, this terrain, terrestrial will do very well. This terrain, this technology will do very well. So it's a mix of technology. Yes, but it's just that satellites, can connect, can do backhauling for all of them. And of course, all the difficult to reach area, because the most important people in all this, as you said, once we have the connectivity, we forget about, is the people in the rural areas. They're all part of the society. We have to bring them. So how do you cater for them? Of course, it's satellite, because you can't forget them. Just because they are in the rural areas doesn't mean they are not citizens of the world or of the region. So, and the only ways, even the most wired continent, and where you have the most wired continent, that's the USA, they still have satellites, connecting all the, and I think during the pandemic, you see that even some states, even in Virginia that is so close to the capital of the USA, in some of their areas, they have to use satellite communication links for the students to be able to have home education. So you can't limit it to just one technology. All the technology should be looked at holistically and before the standard is set. So that is what I'm thinking, yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I think that in many cases, maybe we think like rural areas as a second priority, while in reality, what we hear and we know in different regions is that the people is living in the rural areas because of connectivity, but connectivity can bring also many solutions, whether it is on farming or on agriculture, and that can make a big change. And for that to happen, is just the biggest problem is access to that connectivity at this time. And I think that's very important to start thinking that rural and urban it should not be separated. It's not a different class of people. It is the same people. It is the same value for the country, and they will need to have those opportunities too. And it's not, in my opinion, and I don't know what are your thoughts on this, it's not either 5G or connectivity in rural areas. Both of them should be part of the plan of the countries, and it should be a priority. Both things should be a priority for each country. Wouldn't you say?
What? Okay. No, I just want to agree with you. Because you made a comment and you have already answered this thing that everybody should be considered. So I can only agree with you that what you said is right, because everybody should be considered along the same line. And the only way is like what I gave you, the example of our national broadband plan in Nigeria, that everybody is looked at, and a target time is given that by 2025, at least, if not 90% of Nigeria should be connected and be able to have broadband. So be it satellite. So we have our roles. We have roles for satellite clearly marked. All the dark spots, satellite is going to cover those areas. And the target is realistic. You roll out this at this time. You keep moving, because yes, the people who live in rural areas, they may not have the resources, to pay for these things, but government must come in and do some, provide some intervention in order to connect them. I mean, it's something that I think the model of Nigeria many African countries should look at it. And I do pray and to God that by 2025, we are going to reassess what we have achieved and we'll say, yes, we've done much for the people in the rural areas.
And there's one thing, you have been talking about youth, and I know within the ITU especially, there's a lot of noise made around it, and because it's important to ensure our future is prepared. But you are also an example and an inspiration for many young women. How is connectivity impact the new generations, and especially the girls that want to be in ICT or any other sector, and how is Nishkomsat contributing to it?
Well, first and foremost, connectivity is the bloodline or is the lifeline of today's global economies. Connectivity, without connectivity, you don't have the access to the right information. So with connectivity, youth, men, women, girls, everybody, you have access. You're able, with broadband, you're able to have access to the right information that you can use to better your, to improve yourself, to be able to be an entrepreneur. So what Nigerian is doing is to make sure that when it comes to women, because everybody's talking about gender balance, we have paid, specific attentions to women also in Nishkomsat. We go along with women in aerospace, Nigeria, to provide different competitions to young women, young girls. Girls in ICT Day is being celebrated annually by Nishkomsat, and a lot of pep talks and career talks we give to young ones in order to generate interest in the space sector, for them to be able to say, I want to study something that, because we don't want to have like a death in supply chain of intellects, to our sector. So we give them a lot of pep talks. We talk to them about the values that satellites and space bring to human development, to where we are today. So we contribute to a lot of competitions that encourage the young ones and women, especially because I'm a woman. I'm very passionate about encouraging girl child and women in this business. And of course, the first thing is to provide them with connectivity. Nishkomsat is doing that. That's why in the rural areas, they tell you some of the broadcasts, the tele-education broadcasts, some of the states, we tell them how to use it, the state government, how they can make sure that equal educational materials reach everybody, regardless of where they reside. And that is one thing that satellite can do. You broadcast the same content. So it's not about what I got in this city, but if it's a curriculum, it can be broadcasted over satellite. We're educating people about that governments, state governments, especially those in the rural areas, they need to, use satellites to broadcast, and educate, because education is very key. And one of that is information. So we contribute our quota to that.
Totally. I always like when we talk about broadcast, sometimes people think of entertainment only.
No. Education is key.
Precisely. I always like that change in the thought that it's not just about a football match, but it's access to education, access to information. Yeah. And it brings democracy and it brings knowledge.
Yes, they're able to participate in government. They're able to know what is going on in the central and, make their own, I think a lot of, and because of the youth these days, they live on social media. And and that is where they do their own democracy participation. They say what they feel and government gets feedback. And the only way you can actually get everybody involved is through connectivity. So, I'm very glad that Nishkomsat is an asset to Nigeria, a great asset and not a liability.
Totally. We have a comment in the chat that you have seen. I don't know if you want to say something to the floor. The comment is from from Cameroon, if I'm not wrong, and it says, "Hello, thank you very much for sharing your experience. We have almost similar cases as Nigeria and Cameroon. The propagation models will surely give the same results since the environment is the same. The techniques you use are also useful for us." And it's from Mr.
Yes, I've responded to him. Thank you. I'm responding to chats. So
I see. You are doing everything at the same time. This is amazing.
That's what women do. We multitask.
Yeah, exactly.
You do that also. So
yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to do or else to say. I'm sorry. I don't see any questions coming in the chat. I don't know if anyone else has some question.
Well, I think what I would just like to say is that for me, the regulators needs to to see and realize that the equation of satellites in the role of satellites in the equation of connectivity, because ITU is focused on broadband, provide broadband, but the regulators in different nations are responsible for designing how these things are done. But what I would want to see is for national regulators to recognize more and more the role that satellite plays in achieving a seamless connectivity for their citizens, and not overlook it, and not just see satellites as one very big project that is very far and beyond what is achievable. You can't do away with satellites in the scheme of things. And so regulators, the other regulators of different nations recognize this and give satellites its own play and accord it its own, and make more regulations or support the policies of government that that supports. They should support policies, satellite policies. I think it would be good. My own talk is for the regulators to actually appreciate the role of satellites in the scheme of things.
I cannot agree more with that. We are almost at our last minutes, and as I don't see any more questions coming, but I would like to say that for me this has been a very interesting conversation. And as I was saying before, I mean, every time that I hear the members of ESOA and other partners talking about what they are doing, talking about the impact that they are having in their countries and in the different people, I find it inspirational. And for me, it's very clear that this year, especially after the pandemic, when we cannot see each other, when we are all behind the screen, it means that connectivity is key, and it's a pivotal year for the decisions, and we should avoid losing out. And so I joined you on your call for the regulators, but we need to have policy and regulatory frameworks that reset and view the impact and potential of the technologies, and to protect them, to make them flourish, and so that everyone can contribute to pursuing all those connectivity and 5G targets that I think we all want to achieve together.
Yeah.
And so with this, I would like to thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us today, and I invite all the participants to follow ESOA on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube to get all the latest news. And I would like to thank you all for attending the showcase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia, for inviting us. My appreciations to ESOA for bringing Nishkomsat to the fore. And thank you, viewers and listeners. And hope to hear more from you in the future. And more collaboration, as ESOA preaches, more collaboration on the part of operators. So thank you all. You have a nice day.
Thank you.